Hello YouTube and welcome to Synthetic Oil Info. In this video we're going to talk about a common problem that exists out there in the oil change market, specifically with automatic transmission fluid oil changes. If you've watched any of my current issue videos, you've probably heard me talk about there's a publication out there called Lubes and Greases, and it's one of my favorites. It's where I get a lot of my information regarding what's going on in the automotive and oil industry and market. And back in the April 2013 issue of Lubes and Greases, there was an article titled Myths of the Multi-Vehicle ATF, written by Brad Onofrio. And there was a couple of pieces out of that article that I found really interesting for the average car owner or automobile owner regarding automatic transmission fluid. In the old days, there was a common practice of oil change places and transmission shops purchasing a very broad spectrum base oil, base automatic transmission fluid, and then they would use what are known as top treats. Which was these little bottles of additives that they would add to this broad spectrum base transmission fluid. And that top treat was intended to change the chemical characteristics of that base oil to make it meet the specifications for a particular manufacturer of transmissions. So for example, if you had a Chevrolet or an Oldsmobile or Pontiac, then the base oil would be treated with an additive to bring it to whatever there was the appropriate Dexron fluid requirement or fluid specification. Same way with Ford or Ford products. They would take that base oil and they would add a top treat to it to bring that fluid up to Mercron standards, whatever the appropriate Mercron specification was for that particular vehicle that was in use at that time. And that was a very common practice for many years, and it still is today in a lot of transmission shops because they can buy this base oil in bulk at a relatively cheap price, and then there are manufacturers of these top treats who sell these little bottles of fluid to those transmission shops that allow them to only have to carry, one or two. The goal used to be to only have to carry one base oil. So might have a big tank of 500,000 gallon whatever of base oil, in the back of your shop, and then you would just add the appropriate little bottle of top treat. Well, the problem is that many of the original equipment manufacturers, such as General Motors, Ford, Honda, Toyota, all these different car manufacturers have started changing their specifications for their transmission fluids, and they are changing them in a way that make them mutually exclusive from each other. So if you are a base oil manufacturer and you blend your base oil to meet the specifications of one manufacturer, let's say you meet the specification for the Dexron fluid, well, it is impossible for you to add a top treat to that fluid to make it meet, for example, the Ford fluid, the Mercron fluid. And there's nothing that you can add to that fluid after it has been blended that is going to change the chemical properties of it enough to meet a different specification that is mutually exclusive. It just cannot be done. And so one of the things they're talking about now is the fact that transmission shops are being forced into a situation where they have to carry up to 6 different fluids to meet all of these different transmission fluid specifications that are coming onto the market. Companies like AMSOIL are working to develop, as few of fluids as possible. And I got a couple of videos up now already about, the multi-vehicle Signature Series and the original equipment line that AMSOIL produces. But even AMSOIL can't perform miracles. You know, they cannot make one fluid meet the requirement for somebody else's fluid when those two specifications are mutually exclusive. And so the caution that I want to send out to everyone is that when you take your vehicle into a repair shop to have your transmission fluid serviced, so they're going to go in and they're going to either drain out and replace your filter and fill it back up, or they're going to hook it up to their fluid exchange machine and they're going to flush out all that old fluid. I just encourage you to be a little more informed and ask a couple of questions. Make sure that they are using the fluid that actually meets the requirement for your car or your truck, and that they are not using a top treat system that is trying to cover all the bases that are out there in the automatic transmission world. Because if you put the wrong fluid in these transmissions, especially these modern, complicated, very complex transmissions, you are just begging for trouble. And we're talking multi-thousand-dollar trouble, because that transmission may have to be completely rebuilt. If you're lucky, you can just flush out that fluid and put in the correct fluid and go on down the road. But in more severe cases, you're going to have to rebuild that entire transmission because the incorrect fluid got in there and actually damaged the components of your transmission. And we're talking, the difference here is, you know, dollars in terms of the difference of the cost of fluid. But if you start spending hundreds or thousands of dollars to repair or replace that transmission, you're going to wish you had asked those questions up front and made sure they were using the correct fluid. And so I just encourage you, become an informed automobile owner and make sure that when you go in to have your transmission fluid serviced, that they are using the correct fluid. And if you have questions about what is the correct fluid for your car, look up in your owner's manual, find out what that specification is, and make sure they're using a fluid that meets that specification. And I also encourage you to, as we've talked in our Signature Series and the original equipment transmission fluid videos, AMSOIL makes the absolute best transmission fluids out there on the market today that are available to you almost immediately. I mean, those fluids can be shipped to your house. In most cases in the United States, AMSOIL can get a product to you in 3 to 4 days. In many cases less than that. And then you can walk into that shop if you need to get your transmission fluid changed. You've already done the work. You've done the research. You know what the right fluid is. You're simply asking them to perform the labor. And that really shows that you're concerned about your vehicle. You know what the right fluid is, and you are willing to put in the best fluids that you can put in there to prolong the life of your transmission. So again, make sure you know what you're doing when you take your vehicle in for that transmission service. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below. Visit us on Facebook at Synthetic Oil Info. Please like us there. Tell your friends about it. If you want to order AMSOIL products, MinutemanPerformance.com is the website. Info@MinutemanPerformance.com is our email address. Or post the questions or concerns underneath the videos. And that's it for now. We will see you on the next video. Take care. Have a great day.